Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Ladies, gentlemen, friends, foes, lurkers, regulars, GMO people, organic people.
Boiler room inbound. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Three Ring Circus. We've got a boiler room special event here. We're going to do a bit of live reaction to the Power Politics event of the night, which is a VP, a 2024 election vice presidential candidate debate. And it is sure to be full of moans and groans and ghouls and gasps, and it is spooky season. So here we go. It's October the 1st. I'm your host, my call sign's Hesher. Over here, I'm Brian McLean. Thank you for joining us here in the Boiler Room. We're live at alternatecurrentradio.com. We're live on Rumble, live on Rockfin, live on Spreaker for that audio feed, live on YouTube. What's up, YouTube? I've been trying to check in with you folks over there on the YouTubes a little more often lately, kind of testing the waters a little bit. But yeah, I've got Infidel Pharaoh here with me. Infidel, welcome to the Boiler Room. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's been very interesting day.
Yeah, lots going on. Maybe we should like just talk generally for a moment here. There's crazy stuff being reported about the hurricane damage in the southeast, and I'm very concerned about this whole topic.
Yeah.
It looks as though Ashland is in very, very huge problems right now, and a lot of small towns in problems, and a lot going on behind the scenes. I don't want to get into all the nuances of it, but the thing that I find most noteworthy, man, is there's very little reporting coming out of the mass media about this, and this is an emergency. This is a tragedy. We've got um, towns at higher elevations than you would expect having like 100-year floods right now. The damage is crazy. I'm hearing from friends and colleagues that attempts to get aid into the area is being blocked. Roads are blocked. On top of that, we've got the longshoremen strike and a potential supply chain interruption, even without all this going on. So, and then of course we had the Iran attacking Israel today, and that's been pretty amazing to watch the mass media cartel try to downplay the events there also. So a lot going on in the background while we're about to talk about this absolute clown show, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, I mean it's honestly it's pretty devastating. I mean some of the towns that are in northeast Tennessee, about maybe 60 miles down the road from me, and Asheville, as you mentioned, is one of the got hit pretty hard, and Baltimore. Um, it's I don't know how to start actually. Like I've been seeing some videos and pictures. It's pretty disturbing. Like I'm seeing like houses like getting washed away.
Yeah.
Some of the videos, like there's like this was one video was just two like grandparents and a child on the roof, and then the roof collapsed with them while they're standing with the water right at the roof level, and yeah. But anyway, so with all the videos that's coming out, and complete silence from the mainstream media, of course, because it's a democratic administration, so they don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
But with what I'm seeing, the death toll will be much higher than Katrina. I'm guessing in the 5,000 plus was all what we're seeing.
Yeah.
A little
And
bit.
I mean, is it not absolutely shameful that there's so much information available and so many, first and second hand stories that should be available to the mass media right now for them to be like, hey, you know what I mean? We should be expecting a mass casualty event, but they're talking about it like, oh, it's a storm, there's maybe 100 people dead, it's a big bummer. But they did the same thing in Lahaina. And the scary thing is we still don't know what the death toll in Lahaina was, because when you have entire family units getting burned alive or washed away, there's very few people, in some cases, to report them as missing. So it's a little frightening considering the track record that this administration has been gaining.
Yeah, as you said, it's a continuous, um, complete forgetting the American people, forgetting anything that has to do with the needs of the American people, and time of actual needs. Like yesterday, he sent $8 billion to Ukraine.
Yep.
um, During that time, on Saturday, we sent 700 Tennessee National Guard to the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
Today, I'm seeing reports that they are sending medics to Israel. I'm
Hmm.
like, what the actual fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys doing?
I saw a report on one of my Telegram feeds, and it was a screenshot of someone's text message. And if everything was as presented, it was a screenshot from a soldier. I don't know which branch, but a soldier requesting leave to go home and help family in North Carolina, and it was denied because they might be deploying to Israel. And it's just like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's absurd. And there was another giant batch of what was it, like 7 billion or 6 billion dollars that went to Israel right after that big chunk went. So, like, 17 billion dollars to dodgy wars in foreign lands. While this is all going on, it's I'm sure a lot of Americans are infuriated.
Yeah, it's pretty dire. There is no internet, there is no cell service. All the roads are washed out. I mean, there are two dams. I don't know what's their current state, but at some point on Monday, and it was actually both of them were reporting failure, some catastrophic failure. I don't know where they are right now, if that has been resolved or not. But there are, that town of Newport was actually, they started evacuation uh, of this town because it was one of the towns on the path of that dam. But it's, as you said, it's a very, you know dire situation. The government is sitting there doing nothing. Uh, I know, like, people say that how can the states prepare for them being land state, but we have known that this is coming toward us for a while, right? And I've seen that myself personally. I've seen that a week, you know, that this is was coming toward us, the path of it. Once start developing, that there was a potential is going to come toward us.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they were not prepared. Why? um I just have so many questions. And what is the federal government? I don't know.
Yeah. Me too, man. Me too. And I have deeper questions about the origin of the storm, how these things happen, why it is that this exact same Helene happened 50 years ago to the weekend and on a similar path. I've seen some interesting anomalies in the storm pattern. I've been in some rabbit holes, man.
Well, I mean, if you want to get into the rabbit holes, that area of Western Nashville, between Charlotte and Asheville, has actually been the hot area of lithium production in US, and it started ramping up the last couple of years. Um and so you can, if there is any interest of just letting go to waste, is that more mine? I don't know. I just
Yeah.
have questions too.
There's a
That's
quartz mine
interesting.
there too. A quartz mine at another place that's in question and now completely underwater.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of natural resources there, and those quartz mines.
It goes back to that point of Lahina, as you were saying earlier, right? Is who benefited from letting it run to the ground and not providing response,
Yeah.
What happened to the people that just went in and bought all this home like cheap dirt, right? And so,
And in Lahaina, it was about land rights and water rights,
yep.
and the people were about to have a big win in that. And over here, a similar deal. The residents in both these places we're talking about were oppositional to the expansion of the mining, and they were running into problems with environmental acts and stuff like that. So yeah, there's when we get to the who benefits, it's a big one, and it's like one of the things with lithium is they're needed to build electric cars, and one of the things with quartz crystal is it's required to run artificial intelligence farms. So these are big resources.
Yeah, that's very big.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope everybody's doing all right out there. I know everybody's not from what I'm seeing, and I just really praying for everybody. Hope it's not as bad as we think it might be, but hopefully we'll find out. We'll definitely be hit. The mainstream's not going to be able to sit on this for too long. I think by Friday they're going to not be able to not be on these stories. But if it's like Lahaina, they're going to downplay it, and if it's like what happened in Israel today, they're going to downplay it. So I think tomorrow I'm going to do a special with Odd Man Out, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. So keep an eye on that Discord server for notification on when that goes either live or podcast. I'm not sure which we're going to do, but maybe both. Yeah. What else, man? Anything else you want to throw down before we finish this shit show?
I don't know. Maybe Iran hit Israel today.
Yeah.
But
And again, they're downplaying that one big time, aren't they?
yep.
Like, what are
It's
you hearing as far as the mainstream's overall assessment? Like, where are they telling America they're at right now with all this?
well, I mean, right now there are like neocons are salvating right now. Like, hey, we need regime change in Iran, and they're going full blown in. And but as you said, they are downplaying it that there's a lot of interception that happened, but we saw the same thing. Like this, what they call this Iron Dome is just gets overwhelmed once you start firing more than 50 rockets on it.
Yeah, I mean, it almost looked like whoever runs that Iron Dome were busy out raving that night or something. It was crazy. I saw one missile land that looked like a hypersonic too. Most things were
Yeah,
moving at a normal pace, and there was this one that just came in like hellfire and big giant.
and you cannot intercept hypersonics. And I said that this is foreplay. Iran is not. That was not really Iran hitting Israel hard. This is. It's either they told them, "Hey, we're gonna hit you and don't escalate." That just let's call it the night, or they're just doing some foreplay. But
Mhm.
either way, that this not was not like a hard hit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and there were shootings too. There were, shooters on the ground, at least three different events, if I recall, and a number of people injured, some mortally, and, yeah, it's I don't know, man, looks like stuff's starting to pop off here.
yeah, I mean, we'll know more in the next week or so. I'm just um, I'm hoping things are going to de-escalate, but with the way Israel is going, I don't know. I
Yeah.
cannot predict right now. I honestly I doubted that they will go in Lebanon because I thought that with their airstrikes they got some wins. They killed Nasrallah, and they're just gonna keep doing some strikes and you call it a night, right? But them going in, that I was completely surprised because I don't think them going in with ground troops will play out good in their favor.
I don't
In
either,
Lebanon.
man. I was looking at that militarized zone that they carved out there in southern Lebanon, and it's a pretty, I mean, we have to keep in mind the whole area is smaller than we might imagine, but for what it was, for the size of the border, like that's a pretty big and ugly demilitarized zone or militarized zone, I should say, that they're setting up there. So yeah, this started with the pagers and all that. And of course we've got the 1 year anniversary of 10/7 coming up here in just 6 days.
Oh yeah,
So
it's been a year already.
yeah, crazy, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had Patrick Henningsen on Sunday Wire with me this weekend fortunately. So we were able to, take a deep dive and look at some of this stuff. And, they were already, shooting rockets into southern Lebanon as it was. And, we were talking about where this could escalate. And I'm a little shocked at how quickly it's happened within 48 hours. We're looking at a major escalation here.
Yeah, it's. I have people actually, from Lebanon, and I know a lot of people actually Lebanese will be happy if they got rid of Hezbollah. I just want to be clear with that because they have been, in power there, and they've been sucking resources, and people are not happy with them. So, um, I myself actually personally do not mind if Hezbollah goes, but the issue is Israel when they go on carpet bomb, right? They carpet bomb like whole neighborhoods, right, with innocent people in there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's this is not this bullshit campaign that hey we're just targeting certain people is complete BS.
Yeah, this whole precision strike thing,
No, this
surgical
is
strike,
this
no.
is complete bogus crap.
There's no such thing as a
No.
surgical strike using, 80 J dams, all right? There's no it doesn't work that way, and you can just claim there's a tunnel under everything and, like, oh, by the way, by that logic, it's set up, exactly the same in Tel Aviv, It's like they're got intelligence places next to schools and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's a strategy, right? Is you hide that in civilian buildings.
Mhm.
Um, so and it's they did the same shit in Syria. Do you remember when in Halab when those terrorists basically had uh, their weapons hidden in some of the residential area, right? And then Assad go and strike them, and then they cry foul play, right?
Mhm.
But that's a tactic that is just all of them do there and shit in the Middle East.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Who knows what we're going to wake up to tomorrow? This could be a day to day escalation at this point.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the issue is like if US hit Iran by anything, that's gonna get Russia in. Like Iran helped Russia quite a bit in this Ukrainian war, and they are pretty strong allies. And even Russia, they went and visited Iran like just a few days ago.
Yep.
So they any like delusional politician or neocon in US that they think that this war with Iran is going to end well, I have sad news for them that it will not.
Yeah, especially while at the very same time we still haven't resolved this whole thing with the long reach missiles being fired out of Ukraine towards Russia, that whole thing. It's just like all kind of bad tactical ideas popping off at once. Oh, and there was a whole batch of money that went to Taiwan too that we didn't total up in that initial chunk.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, a whole bunch due to the Chinese Navy doing operations nearby, if I recall.
Yeah. So we'll see what shenanigans they pull right before the election.
Mhm.
Are they going to try to pull a World War III before the election? I doubt. Um,
We
but
hope.
sure hell they will try to escalate and do something. At least if Trump win, I'm expecting they're going to crash the economy because the economy is going to crash anyway. They are going to accelerate, pull that trigger, and they might just stick us in a war anyway so that he can just deal with it.
Mhm.
That's
And
that would be my
a
guess.
supply chain interruption on the front end and a whole bunch of weather warfare too, it's like, "Oh, okay." And then, of course, also, if the US gets involved, with Iran directly, we've had open borders for the last 4 years, and we've
Yeah,
got 20 million people here from 162 different countries, so you can expect the nudge for war support with any Middle Eastern or Muslim country with some domestic events here. I mean that whether they're no matter what their origin is, you know what I mean. That could play into it real quick. Like this could get ugly fast, folks.
yeah, and I don't want to even think about the amount of, yeah. Honestly, this is just treason, actually, if because this is opening us, as you said, like 120 nationalities, knowing that there are Middle Eastern, even there are reports of, like, Middle Eastern, like Afghanistani, as and I'm sure there are some, like, from other Iran, or wherever, right?
Yep. There are.
So the amount of false flags that's going to happen, or the amount of, like, tie that with the assassination talks. Yeah, here. So you want to talk about some conspiracy shit? So the Congress is now floating this bill that they are, like, this amendment that they want to add to the Constitution for what they call government continuity
Mm-hmm.
in case of mass casualty events. When 100 congressmen die at the same time from a mass casualty event, right? How would the government function? So they don't want to do a special election because of timing. Instead, they want to pick 5 people per seat, and then the governor picks someone. Why is the Congress talking right now at that specific time on shit like that, like constitutional amendment like this? It's just timing wise, it's just weird, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Like, to go with this clownish election that we're dealing with already, where we've got, like, basically nobody that was primaried or had any opportunity to be, selected by the people, to be candidates. This is just pretty amazing stuff. Well, shall we jump into it, man?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Let's see what's on the menu tonight with the power politics. Oh boy. Smoke them if you got them, folks. You may need it.
Important things. And that's why
Where's
President
my
Biden
audio?
tomorrow is heading to North Carolina
You hear
and South
that?
Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't. What's up with that? Hold on here. Let me back out of this sucker. I need to be able to hear this, or it's not going to work. There we go. Unmute the tab. That helps sometimes. Now we can present. Here we go. Tim Walz versus JD Vance. In this corner, we've got the darling of the technocratic right wing. And in the other corner, in the blue corner, we've got Mr. Wannabe Steve Jobs himself, Mr. COVIDian cult leader, Timmy Walz. Here we go.
And Florida and Georgia the next day.
And here we see the vice presidential candidates there. Tim Walz standing a lone man behind his lectern. Ed, give us your last thoughts as we watch here as J.D. Vance is off in the wings for the moment. Oh, there he is.
It's performance. That seems obvious, but no faux pas. And they're looking for a viral moment. That's what they'll be looking for tonight.
No handshake.
No handshake. And there you have Governor Walz appears to be taking some notes. J.D. Vance doing the same as our colleagues.
Bullshit.
Before the cameras.
Taking notes.
Well, we have the vice.
Yeah, notes. I assume there's no audience either this time, right?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
I think it's the same
Presidential
format.
Mm-hmm.
debate coming up in a moment. It will be moderated by our own Nora streaming channel.
Blowhards, get out of here.
Only meeting. This is win.
The vice
Presidential debate. You, the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
I'm Margaret Brennan. In order to have a thoughtful and civil debate, these are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute to make further points, with an additional 1 minute each at the discretion of the moderator. The primary role of the moderators is to facilitate the debate between the candidates, enforce the rules, and provide the candidates with the opportunity to fact-check claims made by each other.
CBS News reserves the right to mute the candidates' microphones to maintain decorum. We have not shared questions or topics with the campaigns. The stage is set. Governor, Senator, thank you for joining us. Let's get started.
All right, fact checking and mute buttons are in
Yep.
play. Okay,
Same,
noted.
same.
Noted. Let's see who gets fact checked the most.
Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action.
It failed.
President Biden
Okay.
has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the
Wait,
largest
did
state
she
sponsor
just
of
say
terrorism
that
in
we
the
deployed
world, and it has
40,000? Who deployed 40,000? Did we deploy 40,000 people? You're muted. I can't hear you, Asher.
Didn't the last time we watched one of these things, didn't Kamala say that we had no troops deployed?
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm interesting.
Okay.
40,000 in the last year.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well,
Where?
here we go.
drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you are the final voice in the situation,
Wait a minute. We're down to 1 or 2 weeks until Iran can produce a nuclear weapon all of a sudden? Okay. That's great intelligence they have. That's very timely.
room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago. A nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the vice president said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Margaret, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me. And she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if they got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump.
Allegations? Didn't they both just answer the question the exact same
what
way?
allegations? Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Both of them kissed Israel ass. They are biggest ally, which they are not. Which they are not.
and
They're
like
just, they are
every
a parasite
administration-
living on us.
every administration since JFK has been involved in setting up this situation. Like this whole oh, the strength of Trump during those years was what stopped this from happening. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S.
Can I
did have a
decode this?
diplomatic deal
Can I
with
just
Iran
decode
to
this for a
temporarily
second? 'Cause
pause.
they keep talking about steady leadership, and I'm trying to translate what does that mean, right? Because he said Trump previous advisors, they're saying he's not fit. You know, he's talking about that his defense secretary, like Pompeo, and all the deep state actors that we know. Hasher is still here?
Yeah, man, I got you.
Oh, okay, cool. So I saw your picture disappear. That's why I'm like, where did he go?
That's all right, man. I put you on the stage there with what's her face here. Carry on.
Oh, I see. Fancy. So basically, all those deep state actors that he embedded, or not embedded, but basically that infiltrated his administration, right, and completely watered down his agenda, right, and now completely turned out against him, and they endorsed Kamala Harris, right? The neocons and the Republican neocons are all of them coming in drones, basically endorsing her, right? So when they are talking about steady leadership, I think what they are talking about is predictable, fully controlled candidate. Say what you say about Donald Trump, still he presents to them an unknown factor because he cannot be controlled in the same way that those other puppets are, right? Yes, he has all his flaws, and he aligns with people to make deals, and right now he's aligned with Israel. I completely understand that, but for them, he still has some common sense, independent, that he's going to stand against, hey, we need to wage war right now, is going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, right? Kamala Harris will be that. That's what he means by steady leadership. Is this like traditional Bush, Obama, the uniparty policies, mangled in with the military-industrial complex? You're muted again.
It's almost like what they have right now and what they would have with Harris would not even have to do with the leadership. It's all about the administrative state at that.
That's it.
And,
That's it.
and they're completely embedded in the administrative state. And anything that Harris or Biden reads is most likely just talking points that are handed to them because one of them's geriatrically checked out completely, and the other one is geopolitically illiterate, and would have nothing to even add to these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, who's making decisions right now? It's Blinken and Sullivan and Austin, right?
All owned by AIPAC.
Yeah, it's not, and all of them are Israelis and Jews.
Dual citizen AIPAC money takers.
That's
course.
right. So that's what they mean by the steady leadership. Is that perpetual? And I never understood actually back in the days, like people say like U.S. never foreign policy never changes. Doesn't matter who comes as a president, never change. Like why? And as we got black pilled and red pilled first and black pilled later, but basically find out yes, because presidents don't matter because like they don't make those decisions. It's
right.
Administrative states and those lobbyists that makes that decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to do just fine regardless of the election outcome, regardless of which one it is. They may have a preference in which management team. Trump may be more of an obstacle to deal with, but I mean, I don't know. We would know if number one he won, and number two if he packed his cabinet with the same kind of slime as he did last time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned JFK, really. So really, since that JFK moment, I think we're always presented by that false choice. It's always the same candidates, right, with different masks, but all of them are handpicked so that you make sure you don't get the same, someone that wanted to register AIPAC as a foreign agent, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see. Here we go.
Let's keep going.
Get back to
parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump, who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora?
Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these.
They really let Vance get the last word on that one, didn't they? I'm a little surprised they allowed that topic to change right there.
Hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News pollings,
why do we have historic rainfall?
I thought she was about to say climate change.
Yeah, I'm sure she's going to say it.
It's coming. It's coming. They're setting us up for it.
7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what
There it is.
Where'd they get this fucking statistics from?
Dude,
Can we fact check that bitch?
they get it
please?
from charlatans and liars and people.
Can we get
getting
fact checker?
articles.
Who's fact checking her?
Yeah, who's
I definitely did not want the freaking government to do anything in this. Maybe I want them to stop cloud seeding because that's creating a crazy weather patterns that we cannot control. Maybe we can ask ourselves, what is the impact of cloud seeding on hurricanes? And
like
weather
how
patterns?
how dare they tell people for the last 40 years that has not been going on, and now it's common knowledge that it is going on, and they still think they can tell people it's their fault for eating hamburgers, farting, and driving SUVs, that the climate is changing while they're up there manipulating it quite literally.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of two grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then of course afterwards to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job. And I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. And Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
It's actually
Governor
a good
Walz,
point.
you have 2 minutes to respond.
He just said something that makes sense. It's like,
yeah,
we are you're talking about like industry and controls, right? US has one of the cleanest industrial standards. So why are you going to China? Why are you expanding in China where we know they are producing much more pollution than us?
Yeah,
Fair point.
I've seen it stated that 90% of the garbage and waste in the ocean is from the 3 largest rivers in China, and it's like, well, one of those reasons is because we have everything fucking manufactured there.
Yep.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together so all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sets in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current. And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about, how do we mitigate these disasters?
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned
that was way too much globalese and gobbledygook to try to take apart right there. That is just insane. Let's just leave it with this. What's everybody's power bill looking like these days? And how excited are you about not being allowed to drive normal cars anymore and being forced to drive something that you have to charge in your garage?
Well, it's not just that. That actually Ford is closing some of their EV truck lines because they said we don't mind losing money, but people are not buying it. You know why? Because people are not buying in your fucking agenda.
Yeah, people don't want it. They don't want an F-150 that can't go camping. They don't want one that can't drive them, a standard amount of time or work in the winter. People don't want it, and he's completely full of shit about everything he just said to do with energy.
It is, and what you're seeing is actually a lot of the EV owners are second cars, as their second cars are EVs.
Yeah,
which makes sense, right? Is you have your day-to-day car, right? Your regular car that you can depend on, and you have your EV that you can do stuff in town with, right? If you want to
go get groceries, go to the movies, pick up kids from school, whatever. But then if you're, have any sort of life outside of a 15-minute span, half-hour span, then no.
But how many households have the luxury to buy a second car right now in the economy we're in, right? So that's the point I was trying to make. It's just this is not a reliable technology yet to be your only car, and people are rejecting this, and they're still not getting that message.
Yeah. Timmer brings up a good point. If you're in the Carolinas right now and you have an electric car, how are you going to get out of the Carolinas? There's no power.
Yep, exactly. At least now the Indians are selling them like gas like 3 times the price.
Yeah, $30 a gallon gas.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it gets ugly fast.
That President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years. Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing worse by the climate.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but the folks know, and like I said, again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our number one export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border
I like how
consistently
she,
ranks as one of the
ended it
top
was
issues.
scientists agree on climate change is real.
Yeah, I know. That's like they set it up, they throw it out there. Vance actually did a really good job with, how he framed that.
Yeah.
He didn't argue,
Yeah.
He did it from within the framework of the normie progressive that buys into the scam. But he did that pretty good. I also thought he did a pretty good job there when Walz made a comment while he was, a side comment. He looked at him and addressed him by his first name and kept talking. That was all. I wish, it's too bad Trump wasn't this well prepared last time.
Well, Vance is a politician.
Yeah, definitely. Well coached, clearly.
Voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Oh. Well, let's take a pause moment and welcome Baselit Analyzer. Based, what's up, man? How you doing?
First of all, I'd like to say the guy from Minnesota, he's doing okay. I want to endorse him. As a former governor of Minnesota, I like his issues. How does he stand on big pharma?
Very, very pro. Very pro. What's up, man? Good to have you, channeling Jesse Ventura here with us.
What's up, guys? Good to see y'all.
I thought you were gonna do Mike Lindell. He's from Minnesota too, right?
That's like pretty much it. Hold on, Mike Lindell is slightly higher register. He's like,
hi, in our factory here. It's good because it's in our factory. The other guy's down here in the Baja. I don't like the flags they're making. They make them in China. They wouldn't let me in the HARP facility. I said I'm the governor.
They were like, "Yeah, you're not even the governor of this state." We went to Alaska.
Oh man, how you doing?
Doing okay here. Sorry about the combat landing.
No, no problem.
Been a little under the weather here for the past few
Is
days.
that's his mic or from my side?
No, we gotta. Once you hit something
That
there,
me?
there you go. You're better.
Is it me and my roboting?
Oh yeah, you're roboty. You might have to pop out and back in.
Okay. Dang, of course.
All right, Megatron out. All right, Bay's gonna rejoin us here. Hopefully that'll fix that audio stream. But that was a pretty good answer there by Vance Infidel.
Yeah, I really wonder about this. I just posted about this on X. They 325,000. That's their official number. Probably that number is much higher than that, right? Of lost kids in this nation. They are running massive child trafficking network.
Yeah. And you know, when I was doing State of the Nation with Lynn Shaw as my co-host, this was like her main topic. This was something that she mic check.
Damn, yeah, still doing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow, that's terrible.
yeah.
Wow, I totally ruined the streamline of the show. My bad. Jeez. Gil Bates got me.
Got you. Oh man,
Hold on.
sniped you big time right in the microphone. Maybe a reboot.
All right, I'm gonna try it one more time. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, no worries. Try a reboot.
No, we're waiting on you.
That might do it. Yeah, we're good, man. All right, he'll pop back in momentarily here.
We'll talk about your show.
Oh yeah. So you know, when Lynn and I were first talking about that story and reporting on that story, the number was 80,000, and that was back. That number was from a report back in April of 2023, if I recall. And I kept wondering every few months, you know, I'd see some of her posts and I always think about that number and wonder like, what is it now? So you're right. I mean, it goes up. I'm sure they're underestimating it. And for them to say it's 320,000 now, it's not a surprise to me because it was already at, 40 back then. And I thought that was probably unlikely low.
Yeah. It's I really hope Trump just is really sincere about his policy, because I doubt they're gonna allow, because there are freaking 20 million people in this country now. Again, that's the official number, so I'm sure the number is much higher than that.
Yeah, that's like
Right.
with a guesstimate of gotaways included, but not
Yeah.
really like
Yeah.
you can't count this. You can't, there's no one counting these numbers. I think we need to acknowledge that, right? Like they can estimate, they can guesstimate. Yeah, they have processing and some paperwork they can follow, but the whole point of the surges of people that they can count is that they are a distraction. They are a weapon of mass distraction, quite literally. And they're being invited in and processed by Border Patrol, committing a crime, and told, come on in, but every time they surge an area, there's another area that is left wide open while the entirety of, that Border Patrol can process all the people that have come through, you can't say legally, I don't know, by normalized illegal policy. I don't even, what the hell we call this, but they can't know the number. They don't know the number. And, maybe it's 20 million, maybe it's 40, who knows?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty hardliner on this. I have no sympathy for someone that just breaking the laws of immigration and coming into this nation. Even if it's my own damn family, I would actually say deport them.
Yep. Yeah, and you have the unique experience of having gone through that process and know exactly what it takes. So, it's understandable. And hey, Based.
There we go. Toast.
There you go. Here you
All
go.
right.
There you go.
Now we got you, man. Sounds good.
Yeah, did a hard reboot there. Yeah, sorry about that. So I was listening to y'all cover some of this, and I don't know. I'm just coming in combat landing. What's you guys' overall general take on how this is going?
Well, so far, Vance is, obviously, we've talked about Vance in the past. So for anyone just joining us, like Based here, of course, our opinion of this thing overall is you've got the guy that's connected to, Donald Trump's guy, obviously connected to Peter Thiel and sort of the technocratic right, of course, right? Like the new intellectual dark web of conservatives that seems to be mushrooming around Elon Musk and, all that. And then we've got this other guy who, Walz, of course, who anyone who lived through 2020 and 2021 in his state, well, they should have a pretty good idea of how he feels about freedom. Yeah, so we're just kind of watching these two. That's why I've got this lovely graphic here. Ruckus made this one for me. We've got the
There you go. Yeah.
overall
Perfect graphics.
Yep.
Clown show.
Yep, the clown fight. But we, getting back into what we're actually seeing here, taking off our, high level hats and putting on our power politics hats. JD Vance is doing very well. He's very well spoken. He's very well prepared, and he's been very polite and personable. I can't, of course, but the first part of the debate was them agreeing that we're gonna, the United States should support Israel in whatever they want to do, whether that's striking Iran and all that stuff that leads to. So that was kind of funny to watch the debate have to open up on that topic and have them both just totally agree on it. They could only disagree on nuances about Trump's behavior and the validity of a strong leader versus, any old administrative puppet that's just going to keep cutting them checks.
The one soundbite that I heard that has to be the MVP soundbite that's going to go with the memes is did Walz really say, "I've been friends with many school shooters"?
I don't know. I don't know if we got to that yet.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the tone of this, it reminds me of. Do you remember the Cheney debate against who was Kerry's running mate back in the day? John Kerry, the guy from. Was it the guy from North Carolina, the guy who ran away with the other woman in South America? What was that guy's name? He was like he was like an Al Gore clone. What was that dude's name?
Okay, wait. I gotta admit, I can't remember. So 2004 presidential campaign, John Kerry. Blah blah blah. Candidacy for after beating John Edwards, Howard Dean. Woo! And other candidates. He became the Democratic nominee, challenging.
Is it John? I'm thinking of John Edwards. Is it John Edwards? Kerry ran with John Edwards.
Yeah, Kerry's
John Edwards. Yeah,
running mate. There it is, John Edwards.
Yeah. So this, for some reason, this reminds me of the tone of. There was one debate that vice presidential debate where everyone thought, the expectations were, for some reason, the expectations were that it was going to be fiery debate with, old Satan Cheney, just tearing this guy apart. It ended up being like a sit down, conversation with the two of them. And I remember Cheney just being like, "Look, here's my plan. It involves lots of glass, and you better get on board with it." He just eviscerated the guy. But for some reason, the tone of that is a lot like this one. Whenever the MSM consensus beforehand is something like that, one of the candidates, is a known as a terrible debater or an awful debater, it almost certainly is going to go the other way. That actually works in their favor. Right. So for instance, Fox was saying that, Walz is a terrible debater. He's awful on his feet and all this stuff. I don't know anything about him, but that of course works in their favor. Look at any, great orator throughout history. They always start off with, I'm a bad speaker, but here I go. And then they give the best speech of all time. But these two, it's like, what does this even matter? What does this mean? Like what is the role of the vice president? It seems like it's like either it's two like total polar opposite roles. It's either like they are there as an enforcer to like do the bidding of the, of their boss, or they're there as like some kind of whipping boy, like soft guy. So,
right. Right. And one of these guys like doesn't even have the I don't know, man. It's just so weird. I think that might actually be like the biggest insult of this whole thing, like the biggest circus aspect of this is like we had to sit through that ridiculous debate between Trump and Biden, which was pretty sad. I'd rather watch Bubba Hotep than sit and watch that. And then that whole Kamala versus Trump thing, and that was lackluster. And it's just like, we're just not going to do that anymore. We're just going to give you these vice president guys. They go up there and they do this, and it's like none of these people, they're all like selected. None of them were, there was no appropriate primarying or anything like that. It was just like a foregone conclusion that Trump was going to have it, and they just gave it to him. They changed the rules in the DNC and just announced that they weren't going to have one basically, or that theirs was a total farce. And now they just throw Kamala in there. It's like after the poor performance and all that, like a lot of people suspect this was the plan all along, but it's just like an ongoing like shame ritual now.
I'd rather watch speak in a debate would be, did you see that like head of the longshoreman?
Yeah, dude.
Being interviewed like that. I could watch that dude talk all day. That guy was great.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and the journalist, she was really giving it to him. She was giving him some like actual real questions, but isn't it your fault that all this happened? He was like, now they know what the longshoreman, I can't do his accent. Damn, the longshoreman, what the longshoreman go through every day. Damn, I got to work on that one. But anyway, the guy was awesome to watch. He was great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
This is just like NPC Hunger Games.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's well, actually, before I go back and see what Walz says to this, what's it like in Virginia? Did you guys get hit with any of this Helene damage or anything?
No, not really. I mean, they were calling for major flooding in the city today, but they shut the locks, so I guess that took care of everything. It was supposed to be severe flooding, and Richmond City has a history of not like dealing with that very well. I remember 2 storms where they shut the locks too late, and then they locked all the water in, and then the highways were underwater. All of downtown Richmond was underwater. Everything was flooded.
Oh wow.
But they did it right this time, I guess. But yeah, really nothing. It's crazy because I heard people in Tampa, like all throughout Florida. I've heard different people be like, yeah, I heard, there was some wind at one point, but not really anything. And then I've got 2 friends, one very good friend who lives in Asheville, and I mean, it's like Hawaii. It's like the Hawaii thing.
Yeah, it's like Lahaina, right? That's what we were saying earlier.
Yeah, and he has had power the whole time, but he said only because he's so high up, like on one of the mountains. Everybody else lost power. There's no, I don't know.
What does he get from God? Like, it just comes down to the mountain directly, or
well, I guess the flooding was below him, and somehow the power. I don't know how it worked, but I guess Gil Bates directed that heart machine, across the street and not at him, thankfully. So
yeah, right. We got Ruckus joining too. What's up, Ruckus? Welcome.
Yo, hey, hi, hello, howdy. Can you hear me? Check.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, cool. How's it look too?
Looks good, man. Looks good.
Woo, thank God, because I was having some issues earlier today, everybody. Not gonna lie. There was I hope it doesn't happen again, but I was having like issues with static.
Oh, I see some.
There's some static? Oh, crap, it's happening again.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did it get worse?
Yeah, it's getting worse.
Oh no.
Oh,
What is
that's an
going on?
effect.
Hold on.
That's an effect.
Hold on 1 second, guys. Hold on. Let me see if this makes it any better. Let's see. Does this help?
There you go.
Whoa, wait a minute. What is going on here? I'm stuck in the TV.
Nice.
This is a sneak preview for everybody. Say hello to Ruckus Vision. What do you think? Is this cool or what?
That's great.
Cool.
Neat, huh? Yeah. Just don't ask me how I did it, because I would not be able to recreate this if I had to at gunpoint. But anyways, this is what I've been busy working on, everybody, just so you know. So, but I'm happy to be here briefly for a little while. What's on the agenda? You guys watching some clowns or something?
Yeah, man. We've got these 2 guys going at it here.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I heard him mention North
Funny, 'cause I'm
Carolina
doing
once.
my brand new episode of my show here, hopefully sometime tonight or early morning. But I'm going to be discussing a couple clowns of a different type. So I'm glad you guys are covering these two clowns while I'm got my hands full with my two clowns over here.
It's like an episode of My Three Clowns, right?
That's right, my three clowns.
I think there's like 200 people dead so far, just in
Oh,
Nashville.
dude, I was just saying it's gonna be in the thousands. This is
Yeah.
you just wait until you see it.
Because
The
roadways,
report that's coming out is
roadways
pretty
full of
dire.
cars got like
Yeah,
washed
it
away.
just flooded. Like people
Yeah.
died in their cars. They're actually like I was like reading a report about people found in trees after like street dried out. It's
I-40 at the border where I go, like I cut through there when I'm on the way down south. Just felt like it's just gone. It just fell like off the mountain.
yeah,
The entire highway just disappeared.
yeah, like one side of it just like collapsed.
Yeah, and when it's a mountain like that, there's usually only one road in and one road out, or one road that goes over the whole thing. So it's going to be a while before any help can get to people in some of these places, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Wonder
And
if
what's up with flooding at such high elevations? Like so much flooding at elevations that are so high, in places that don't normally do it. Really weird.
Yeah, very weird. I wonder if the Vanderbilt Biltmore took any damage.
I mean, yeah, it's the Biltmore city. It got hit pretty hard. I didn't know about the actual estate itself.
Yeah,
I haven't seen much about it.
Yeah,
it's in a flat zone, so maybe.
Yeah,
I think like the cell coverage has been in and out. My buddy had cell coverage, like it was spotty, and he said that Verizon, like it was the Verizon, it was everybody else had coverage, I think the entire time, but the Verizon coverage was awful. And then the power, I think North Carolina has the same power as us. They have a Dominion. Dominion has a monopoly on the power.
The voting
They're
machine,
just like
company, Dominion,
basically
that Dominion.
yeah, Dominion Energy.
No, seriously, is it the same company?
It's not. No, Dominion Voting. I think Dominion Voting is owned by Cerberus Capital,
Yeah,
which is what one of my buddy's dads is on the board of that. I think they're owned by that. It's one of the hedge funds or whatever conglomerate. But Dominion Energy, which is because Virginia is the old Dominion, they have the monopoly for like 6 or 7 states. And it's weird because they have ads and commercials on television, but they're the only power company.
Yeah.
Why would you have ads?
Yeah, it's similar in California. Like there's parts in Southern California where there's more than one, but much of California, it's all just Pacific Gas and Electric. There is nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay, so
which one of those companies was it? Was it the voting machines or the power company? Whose
Power
parent company? So the power company called Dominion, their parent company is Cerberus, like the demon.
No,
dogs?
the power company is just Dominion. I don't think they have a parent company. The voting machine company, Dominion Voting, has a parent company, which I think is Cerberus Capital.
See, now that's fat because that's like the demon dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
and then of course
three-headed
Dominion
dog
has a bit of a demonic thing to it as well. So that's very interesting. Just saying.
Yeah, and for Verizon, I saw this today. According to a tier 2 technician at Verizon, there's been a deliberate and unauthorized shutdown of the U.S. electrical grid that specifically targeted cell towers, starting locally and expanding nationwide. Verizon has experienced the most significant impact, with other carriers also affected due to their reliance on Verizon's infrastructure. The systematic nature of this shutdown indicates it was likely executed with ill intent rather than being a simple system malfunction. So, you've got this insane situation with the storm. You've got Verizon taking what, if we could take that at its word, is some sort of cyber attack, it sounds like. I don't know. And then, they're not allowing deliveries in there. I heard from someone earlier today who was able to crowdsource a whole bunch of money and get water, like pallets of water and trucks and stuff like that, tried to send them in there and was stopped. unable to deliver. And then the longshoremen strike. So this is all very, I don't know, a lot of coincidences piling up here, my friends.
Yeah, I saw a trucker that was talking about like trucks getting like vandalized on the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
Tires getting slashed while they're sleeping and stuff. Nothing stolen.
Interesting. All right, you want to continue?
Yeah, let's get
It's
back at it.
Sorry, just to clarify, it's owned by Staple Street Capital LLC now.
Staple Street. Okay.
Yeah, I think it just changes hands frequently.
Nice fact check. Nice fact check.
you
All
go.
right, here we go. Back to the clown show.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the attorney general of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race.
It's a lot of statistics, numbers, fallacies tonight, Baze. That's one thing you've missed that you would have enjoyed is every time this guy opens his mouth, there's a fact or a number fallacy falling out of it.
Who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this, and that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents, detection for drugs, DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Let's.
He did, and he did not build it for me.
They wouldn't let him build it. They said they couldn't afford it, remember? And then all of a sudden we just printed like however many trillions of dollars for COVID. And Ukraine, and now Israel. Ridiculous. And this whole thing about Donald Trump stopping that deal going through. Let's not forget that deal also included a whole bunch of billions.
Oh, dude, they were actually legalizing the status of those 20 million people.
They were trying to do was print a whole bunch of money and get, add to the bureaucracy in Homeland Security, into Border Patrol.
Yep.
And then send traffic a whole bunch of cash to the little green comedian in Ukraine and a whole bunch of cash to Israel. Like it was all packed in there. It was just like, it wasn't Trump's thing to have that not pass. There was a whole coalition of people that were like, no, if you could separate these, maybe we could talk, and they wouldn't.
And 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point said
more numbers, and we had American citizens who banded together and built their own pieces of that wall, and they were canceled from life, canceled from banking, canceled from everything, deplatformed, depersoned. This is ridiculous talking points.
Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my
Weird
point
tie
is that we
choice.
already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
The other thing that bill was going to do, as Chloe reminds us over there on Rumble, is it was going to let in 5,000 a day. All it did was just stop the influx at an absurd number every day. So you just have a queue of like 2,500 to 5,000 every day at every crossing. And that was their
multiply that by 30. How many is that?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You do the math on that, like add up the ports of entry, add up the 5,000 a day. It's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true. Don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together.
They are eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
Meow, meow. Right.
We'd come together and solve this
They're eating
if we
the
didn't
pets
let Donald
of the
Trump
people who
continue
live
to
there.
make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I
That's
believe
complete
Senator
bogus,
Vance
by the
wants
way.
to solve this.
Yeah.
That bullshit story did not happen.
Yeah. Propaganda fallacy. Is that what we
Yeah.
call that one?
The place they're
standing
fleeing
Donald
from
Trump.
has a legitimate leader. The leader of their country is literally named Barbecue Bob.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the warlord.
The warlord in Haiti. Yeah, it's barbecue.
Remember that interview they got an interview with him like right after that coup happened, and they were like, people are accusing you of they're saying you're eating people. That's not true, right? I mean, it's just transitional government chaos. And he was like, no, it's true. I ate the last guy. We're going to eat I'm barbecue. I can't do his Haitian accent.
It's like the Haitian Terminator.
And not
Yeah,
working
that was
together
terrible.
to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar, Kamala Harris, has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor,
Those things are overwhelmed even without the immigration element.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, dude.
Well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blame.
Law enforcement crafted the bill. I'm sorry. I've talked to a lot of law enforcement in my interviews. I don't know any of them that agree with this on any level or thought that bill was going to do anything good.
Migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this and you start to adhere to what we know. American
90 days. How are you going to, like, no, you should not take fucking 90 days.
This is ridiculous. Yeah, for some extra context here, Ruckus dropped us this one out of NBC News. The mayor of Springfield, Ohio, has made multiple trips to Haiti. He and the entire city council received financial kickbacks for importing 20,000 plus illegal aliens. It's why they ignore the pleas of the residents.
Jebediah Springfield?
Say? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Springfield is where the Simpsons
I don't
is
talk
filmed.
about my faith a lot.
Yes.
It's Springfield, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us, you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it. And it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Nice try.
Thank you,
Brad.
Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Sliding in with the
Laura?
fact check. Way to go, lady.
Yeah, fact check and change the subject. They're good at that.
Thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret,
Thank
I
you,
think it's
Laura.
important
We're
because
going to turn now to the
debate-
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that
The
you guys weren't
economy,
going to
we're-
fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the
Nice one. CBP one. You got to throw that in there. That's cool. I like how he shut them down.
legal process.
Kamala-
We
and
have
Kamala
so much
Harris
to get
opened up
to,
that
Senator.
pathway. Those
We have
laws
so
have been on
much.
the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to
One
have
app has not been on the books.
We both want the last word, damn it.
Oh,
gentlemen.
they muted his ass.
And the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
Either of them give a shout out
Love
to Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, 100 years old today.
Hey, all right. The legal process.
The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan. So let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits.
Is
for
Walz? Is that how you say it? Walz?
housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will
Yeah, WALZ, like balls.
increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you
So
pay for
what?
that without ballooning the deficit?
Did they keep
Governor,
citing Wharton School because that's where Trump went?
Yeah, I wonder.
It must be.
you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing.
Most important thing,
But it costs
prescription
$5
drugs.
to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota.
How about
12% more houses in Minneapolis. Prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit. We have one in Minnesota. Reduces childhood poverty by a third. We save money in
Rent
the
probably
long
went
run,
down because
and
they
we
were all burned to the ground.
Yeah.
do the right thing for families, and then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm gonna give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best, more people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say, look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle class and working class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act,
We didn't do enough.
Now
We needed more snitch lines.
I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, You don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I asked.
Wow, shout outs to Mayo, shout outs to Wharton. This is all stuff.
Real.
You out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, whatever. How is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years?
This is such a tired. I hate listening to Democrats talk about the
I
economy.
know.
They're always
It's
just talking
complete
about
bullshit.
how they're gonna magically take money from the rich. It's like, motherfucker, you are the rich. You're controlled by the rich. What are you fucking talking about? Like,
boomer points.
Dude, seriously,
Yeah,
it's
boomer points. There you go.
ridiculous. Like, you talk to any economist that knows what they're talking about, and all their heads are exploding right now. All the economists we know, our heads are absolutely exploding listening to this garbage come out of this clown's mouth.
They love talking about the deficit. They just love that.
Yeah. Well, they just drive it up and up and up. And like, I mean, they just took the policies that Trump was throwing down, and just went wild with them in between 2020 and 2022.
Year as president. That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts, but those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for
He
the
could
first
just say,
time
you could
in a
just say,
generation,
you
Donald
say
Trump
trust
had
the experts.
wisdom.
We say fuck the experts.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, seriously.
I mean, he'd be appealing to his base.
Yep.
Right. And Vance, I mean, overall, like Vance is making good points and everything, but I think that he just gets lost in the weeds. Like the minute that they start talking about what could have been and what was in the past and how it was in 2017 and all that stuff, the average person just that's ancient history. They don't remember that. It's not like in their muscle memory at all. They want to know, like, he should just double down on right now. Right now, everything is too expensive. Everything's too much. Everyone's suffering. There's no middle class. Everything's gone. You guys screwed it all up. You ruined it.
Yeah.
I mean, who can't see that?
Right. No, it's not doing.
I also think I would bet anything that they chose. One of the factors in choosing this Walz guy is that they, in some focus group somewhere, they said this guy like looks like Biden, like he resembles Biden, but he can still talk. And so the average person out there sees him, and then they think of Biden, and they think, oh, it's just everything's still good.
Yeah.
I mean, he does. He kind of resembles Biden, and he's just balder.
And he's got connection. He's got dodgy connections too. Like Biden was basically put in charge to help cover up all the crap that was going on with Ukraine. This guy, he's been to China 150,000 times. He has all these weird Chinese connections.
Courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop. And we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires,
time's up, but he was done talking.
Heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that. Look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But
I love
we
two
had
things: China and soy.
undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas.
He's good at talking.
We're in agreement that we bring those.
He seems like he's had a lot of soy though.
Yeah, he likes horse Siemens too.
Yeah, he does. I mean, the clips of him like coming out on stage at his rallies also are like, you know,
So cringy. So Howard Dean, it's like the visual version of Howard Dean's audio flub every time.
I think his overriding his purpose also is that like he has to hammer home like the kind of the Clintonian you know, what did Clinton always say? I feel your pain. He's always talking about like I feel you, or you know, your emotions, or you know, I'm in touch with people.
Yeah, relating. I'm from the middle class. My parents.
I'm a coach.
Yeah.
The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the
that's a gross
that he
generalization.
did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that
I was in the IRA. I was doing, but
take
they sent me to prison, but I got a job. I got 250,000 jobs from Air France, according to this guy.
Yeah.
Which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get
the humanity of medical debt. My goodness.
I know.
Yeah, that's in his book.
Yeah.
to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you. Margaret?
We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics. But right now, I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small.
We're going to address some of the timeline now, huh? Okay.
Rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. They
never came home.
I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can. For
I
your
also went to an
community.
island in the
Putting
Caribbean
yourself
many
out there and
times.
letting your folks understand.
Influential people.
Man, way to skirt the question there too. Really,
I know.
just like take us on a ride there, Walz.
And what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the
What did he
question was,
teach?
can
Anybody
you
know?
explain
She's gonna re-ask. I'll give her this one. Thanks for that.
the
No, just
discrepancy?
all I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
I lied. I'll
Was
just
he
shut
was
up
he a
now.
sex ed teacher? Does anyone know? Something like that?
I don't know.
So
I
I
think
was,
wasn't he literally?
I don't know. Was he?
I think. I mean, they keep saying that he
It says
started
here
the
he wasn't
LG.
really an educator. He was actually a janitor, which is why he says he worked at schools.
He said he was a young teacher. I heard him use the words.
All I said was I was a janitor at a university. Sometimes after work, I'd put math problems on the board. You know, they thought I was really good at it.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016,
That was pathetic.
you called your running mate, Donald Trump, unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear?
I stand by those comments. I
not
was
just the
talking about his
advice
art. Have you ever seen his art? He paints postcards. I mean, it's undeniable. I was just talking about his art, nothing else. That's all I meant. By the way, the great conspiracy of this event is that he obviously got the questions beforehand because he coordinated his tie color, right, with the questioner's dress color. Why is he wearing a pink? Why is he wearing that? What is that?
It's a great question.
He wants to hear. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about
Why didn't he say he was against Trump? Because he was for Obama.
Tim just accused this of being.
Yeah, I
He
don't
was
know.
he was a pro. He was like a very pro Obama guy.
Yeah. Huh.
A
You know, you were
national
mentioning
sales tax.
His tie, real quick. When he's standing just perfectly still in front of the microphone, it looks like he's got a giant tongue sticking out.
Like a cartoon dog tongue or something.
Yeah.
Because he
Look,
went to
the
Yale.
one thing,
Yeah.
and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy.
It's the first thing I
And
thought
then he
of when I
tells
got
us,
up this morning.
send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, top of
Amanda
mind.
Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, a 12-year-old child raped and
she?
Dude, again with the vignettes, always with the
Yeah, it's just like I'm just stupid shit that they just keep repeating.
Should we skip this part? This is lame.
Yeah.
impregnated.
I'm offended he didn't mention birthing persons.
That we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia and
It was, I think, referring to a national ban in.
There we go.
Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not. And that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past,
Did I go too far?
No, you're still
you
talking
have
about national ban
supported
of abortion.
a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks.
Oh, never mind.
In fact, you said if someone is
standard for abortion stance, but Nora, an unplanned pregnancy is
not be that. Women having children were a the case.
I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still law obligation or barons
Unplanned
to
pregnancy. I
violate.
was just minding my own business, walking down the street, and bam, I got pregnant.
Yeah.
This is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions.
Governor,
when Roe versus Wade things, the
How long
case,
do they
it's
get
not
to
vice
this?
presidential debate in just a moment.
Oh my gosh.
CBS.
We don't care.
Sure, abortion is the number one issue on every voter's mind.
Death
Don't
for
forget.
children and teens. Welcome back to the CBS News
really are
vice
running on that. It's
presidential
weird.
debate. We
And I'm glad we skipped that.
want to turn now to America's gun violence epidemic. The
Uh-oh.
leading cause
Uh-oh.
of death
Here we
Good
go.
one.
Yeah,
Good
this
one.
is
for children
Jeez,
and
this is gonna be
teens
good.
in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose
Well,
most
she starts with a false premise. Okay, cool.
gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90%, in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Is this guy Betty Davis eyes or what? What's with this guy's eyes? He's got like girl eyes. You see this? This is crazy.
What's up with that?
It's your
Looks
biggest
like a Barbie
nightmare. Look,
doll
I got
with
a
facial hair.
17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of San Diego parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out.
Wait, hold up. The vice president is also a hunter?
Yeah, and he understands that the Second Amendment is there. We understand that it's there.
Is he referring to Kamala Harris is a hunter?
Yeah, remember she
owns a firearm.
She said Tim and I own firearms in that last one, dude. What kind? I want to know what kind of firearms do you and Tim own, Kamala, and what kind do your security detail carry? Let us know. Please tell us. I'd love
BB
to know.
guns.
She's strapped up.
Muskets? You got flintlock muskets? Because
She's got the Draco.
BB
you know,
guns.
the Second Amendment is there. Do you also know that it shall not be infringed? Just curious.
Enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence.
Everyone that has done this in a school, they've had loads of data on. They've had plenty of data
Yeah.
on.
Well, the FBI had that data beforehand.
Yeah. And they've never shared it with the public either, like before, during, or after.
And this idea that we should just live with it. And I here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there.
She said that.
Your schools.
Kamala Harris said that.
Yeah, she did. Of course. I've got montages of her saying it multiple times in multiple ways.
Pardon to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go when we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills? They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening.
He's dancing around that question too. He's not actually saying what they want to do. I mean, he kind of intimates it, but he's not saying, he's saying you can keep it, but at the same time, what, you can't buy them anymore? Like, what's the fucking policy you're actually dancing around here?
Listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful, and I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health
Yep,
abuse,
I was gonna say mental health.
substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression.
Yeah, and I agree with Brennan here. Finland probably doesn't have a daily shooter program operating in the background also.
Yeah.
They don't,
rates
but
of
doesn't Finland have notoriously the highest rate of suicide or
Suicide rate.
unaliving
Yeah.
in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, even comparing these two cultures, Finland and the United States, is like just a
So
non-starter.
different.
It's-
Yeah.
Also, when the first thing that I thought of when he mentioned Finland was that, remember that World War II sniper, the most successful sniper in World War II, that Finnish guy?
Mhm.
What was that guy's name? Anyway, that was an odd thing to bring up. I wish he had brought up Norway, right? Was it Norway where they had Andres Breivik?
Mhm.
Right, one of the worst examples. But hey, the point is to bring up Finland is interesting because obviously the Nordic countries are like part of the socialist map for these people. They always like weirdly bring up the Nordic countries, especially. Remember, they used to bring up Sweden all the time until during COVID when Sweden
Didn't play along.
Right.
Yeah, and now that Stockholm's the rape capital of the world, like it's kind of maybe we shouldn't talk about it, I guess.
Right.
Anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools, we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was NRA
There you
guy
go.
for a long time. They used to teach
There you
gun
go.
safety.
What?
Wait, what did he just say? Can you go back?
Let me play that one more time.
Yeah.
Did you change your position? Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues, making sure folks have health care and all that. But I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns. And there are things that you can do about it.
Is it ever just the gun
No,
ever like pick itself
never
up off
just
the
the
counter?
guns.
Like, you got to be kidding me. He thinks
Thank
the
you.
item. This fucking retard thinks that the item is above the will to do violence and harm. What a
Yeah, thank you, grandfather, vice president. Thank you, kind man. Like he talks like he's doing a fireside chat or some shit. This is the same guy that had the snitch line.
Yeah. A literal snitch line. A literal snitch line. So neighbors could call police on neighbors for not following mandates, right? Not even laws, mandates.
But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret?
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is
Nice try, dude.
pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now, look, you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in Minnesota.
What is this guy even talking about?
I don't know.
I
He's
can't even
really just
follow him. What the hell?
blabbering and shit that doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God, this is awful.
These cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing.
Campaign's
here.
position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising? And what part of any of this plan will provide immediate?
I know where they're going to build them.
You have 2 minutes.
They're going to build them on top of Targets and Walmarts and Costco's.
Yeah, right.
Remember, like 10 years ago, you guys talked about that with Jay.
Yep.
I live in the Target, a Google city, right?
Yep.
I saw an article the other day about they had converted a Costco into an apartment village. Everything you need is taken care of right on the ground floor.
Never mind a 15-minute city. That's like a 5-minute city.
Yeah. And they already have the Disney themed
Yep.
cities, you know,
Yep.
Star Wars cities.
Yep. Yeah, it's insane. Expect it. It's already here.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable.
Ask
Now,
a
you
genuine
asked
question
what
here
will
about what they're talking about
immediately
here. I got a genuine question.
Yeah.
I think I guess it's clever that they keep bringing up the immigration thing is like that is the thing, that is the problem with, like, just name the issue, right? But I mean, I guess that's clever because no matter what, like, you can always blame the outsider or the other, which they do, with geopolitics, obviously in a macro sense. But I mean, do you guys think that that's true? Like, especially the housing thing. Like, is the housing thing happening because of competition with illegal aliens, like in cities or in areas where they're driving up the cost? Is that what's doing it?
To an extent, perhaps, but what I think is happening is just a massive consolidation of resources in every single department that's important, whether it's energy, whether it's housing. I mean, we only need to look at the amount of um, cheap housing that the brokerages have all bought up, right? Like BlackRock now owns like, the majority of the suburbs in certain places. Like that whole concept of you'll own nothing and like it is a little bit dependent on something exactly like this, where they tweak with the housing market. That yes, areas are flooded with illegal aliens, and that changes the housing market. There's a negative impact there. But it's this. There's so many examples. Even the Epstein stuff, the Diddy stuff, all these things that are crumbling. It's like if those things were functioning, in one wheelhouse as we suspect they were, like there's a consolidation of that material also. It's kind of just like, I don't know. It's like
Yeah, I agree. I
setting up
agree
a
with the
chessboard, right?
yeah, I agree with the the I don't know, the Schwab stuff, right? And the talking points from 2020 and the, owning nothing and you'll like it. And that's obviously one of the big factors in BlackRock and, destroying huge swaths of territory and then buying it up cheap. And we keep seeing countless examples of that. And then there's also they keep mentioning the middle class, and it's like the middle class, the middle class used to be a visible, it was a palpable thing. And to me now, the middle class is like this phantom thing that people like sort of belong to, but the disparity is such that it's like it's being destroyed so that the middle class just divided and most people went into a working class situation, especially, since 2020. The more people that come out of, college with debt, the more people that are in the service industry. We're kind of all in the service industry now. We all go to the grocery store and do self checkout, and everything's, service industry. The number of people that have two jobs, one of which is like service related, the number of people that can't afford, like they get behind on their bills and then they are just stuck in debt forever. And then that just keeps pushing people into the lower class. And then the people that had property or had some sort of assets. I mean, I talked to a friend the other day who he bought a house. They bought their first house in Charlotte, and it was like, I don't know, $700,000. And then they sold it after three. He got a better job. They sold it 3 years later for like 1.5 million. So he said, like, it's just so, if you have any money at all, it just builds upon itself. But if you have nothing, you're fucked.
Right. And where are all these illegal immigrants that have, between $1 and $500,000 in cash to put down on a house? Like Cole answered your question real well in the YouTube chat. He said the whole illegal thing is a smokescreen to hide that hedge funds are using retirement savings to scoop up single family homes. Illegals can't get mortgages, and I doubt they have $500,000 in cash.
Right.
And it's like, and he also reminds you to tip your self-checkout robot. But yeah, that's like it seems like they're just jacking with everybody with this specter of the middle class. Like, what is the middle class at this point? What is that? Like we're watching that slip through our fingers. We've been watching it slip through our fingers for decades now.
Right.
Houses used to cost what, like our parents, our gen, if you're Gen X or something, your parents and grandparents were buying cars for like, $10,000. Your parents, maybe 20, maybe even less. And it's like, houses. My point is, houses now cost as much as like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The ride that we've been on, when you zoom out, they when they talk about the economics, they're looking at like, the last 8 years or something like that, when they have these retarded conversations. But we're gonna get in trouble with YouTube. I keep using the R word tonight. But you look at it as a whole and it's just like, holy crap, like our national debt now is like what, $30 trillion. Like there's no middle class, there's no future for a middle class when that's the case. And they're literally threatening us with cyber polygon shutdowns and stuff like this while BlackRock buys up all these homes on, you know, our parents' retirements and our grandparents' retirements.
Change the equation for American citizens. If you
I don't know. I didn't mean to steamroll that. Anyone else want to throw in on that? Crushed.
lower energy prices. As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is think about it. If a truck driver is paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer?
Can I have it?
Where, yeah, Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your
The
time is
federal
up.
government is your landlord. What could possibly go wrong?
No kidding.
The allegation that the vice president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not
migrants,
true. And again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's again blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask though on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor,
Where's the
your
study?
time is up. But Senator, on that point, I'd
Fact
like
check. That fresh water is thanks to me. In Minnesota, it's thanks to me. I did that.
what evidence
It
do you
was all
have
sewage.
that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local. Many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care
Do we care about this one? Let's blast through this. This is ridiculous.
Act. You
covers everything has been long under the
You both love big pharma. We know it.
ways to
it. The reason it was so important, health goes you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. And if you
a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said, inflation was low.
We don't
Under
care.
the Trump
and Republicans fought to it's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people, whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail. Worked.
Still on it.
Get
Thank you, Margaret.
Can
He seems like he's getting
I apologize.
lost.
We're out of time.
Yeah. You're getting
Because-
lost in his own like rabbit holes.
Like his eyes are getting more vacant as this goes on.
I'm a little worried about him. I don't know if however he's prepped for this was healthy.
A number of subjects to discuss. Margaret.
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country and the United
Are these real? Like with all this stuff going on today, like this is really where we're gonna go. I'm sorry.
States is
I don't care about this.
Didn't he get a DUI like in the 80s?
Cancer work.
So I mean, he was going like 140.
Immediate importance of grant and care. We want to promote the.
He was blasting some. I forget what music he was blasting when that happened. It was something like
some Milli Vanilli.
Yeah. It wasn't Iron Maiden.
I didn't think so.
So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said, as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump?
Are we still on this? I'm sorry if you've got kids and you're interested in this, but I'm just not interested in this. I don't even think anyone with kids would be interested in this gook.
But the issue
To quote
here
George
is-
W. Bush, a former president, one day doctors in this country will be free to practice their love with their patients.
Oh no.
The question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in
This is going on longer than the abortion part. My goodness.
For Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits
Oh, here we go.
contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation.
So again, a false premise to start saying that they looked at all the evidence. They did not look at all the evidence. They've still not looked at the majority of it, because they say there's no case to be had, so no reason to look at any of it.
Republicans and Democrats certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies
called it that?
the results?
Yeah.
So I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora,
Cobra
first of
Commander.
Cobra.
I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square. And that's all I've said. And that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration.
Fact check. We did debate those peacefully in 2020 in the public square.
Yeah. And many people were shut down for it and called agents of this or that for it. Some people lost their jobs. I mean, some people went to jail for it.
But unfortunately,
yeah,
it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
This bro moment here. That's funny.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election.
Dude, what is with Democrats now stealing all the conspiracy terms? This is crazy. He went with the boiling frog. Yesterday, Hillary Clinton went with October surprise. This is just, everything is so weird now.
And he said he did. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there. And
my opponent here is a beta soy cuck. Totally blue-pilled.
A group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's
wait a minute, is he talking about what's already happened, or is he talking about that whole thing, the blue anon conspiracy theory that if the Republicans win, they're going to jail all their political opponents for no reason? Is that where he's going there? Okay.
Words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret?
I mean, they questioned it during the Bush Al Gore thing, didn't they?
They questioned it when Trump won.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, look, Tim.
There's plenty of reasons to question it based on a lot of open source research and interviews.
First of all,
there was a literal civil war in this country.
Yeah.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy
J6 was worse
when
than
he
that, though.
peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this
Still have my
country,
skull and bones,
Democrats
lines, claw
protested the
handshake.
results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the
Depends
conversation.
on which books you're talking about.
Yeah, we know which books he's talking about.
And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's that.
Yelling
Oh my
fire,
gosh, dude.
This guy, yelling fire in a crowded theater is not the same as the things that people have been censored for. This guy's
Corbett did a whole thing on that also, on the fire in the crowded theater, which was just, that was one that also made up. It was some Rockefeller thing.
Yeah. He's trying to say that the conflation here is not even worth trying to unpack.
That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this, I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not. It's not anything.
You didn't build it.
Other than in Donald Trump's world, because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is where is the firewall with Donald Trump?
Mike Pence isn't on the stage because there are two women on the stage, and he has to have his wife with him if there are two women on the stage.
It's a firewall. If he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it. That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of
what
who's
are you talking about.
What is he talking about?
Democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
Ugh. Thank goodness. Final thoughts. What is all
That was weird.
Yeah. I don't even know what the hell that was.
Brian Koberger.
Presidential debate. It is now time for the closing statement. Senator Vance won the virtual coin toss and elected to go last. So Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there. And they don't all agree on everything, but they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future of this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you that that better than it is
Dick Cheney's
sense
the paragon of optimism.
I know. Shouts out to Dick Cheney and Tay Tay. You got to be kidding me with this, man.
What a time to be alive.
This is insane.
Optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage. And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that.
What's with this shouts out to Maya Angelou?
Oh, no.
Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris.
He's got another story about something his grandmother said in his autobiography.
Oh, of course, of course. So many other things that you could have led with here. This is such a soft pedal for an outro.
The section where he says, and one time I was questioning whether I was, Skittles, right? So I asked my grandmother. Do you remember? I think I told you the story. And his grandmother, this is in his book, and his grandmother replied, "Well, do you like to suck?" And I said, "No, gross." And she said, "Well, then you're probably not. But if you are, that's fine." That's in his book.
Yeah.
Ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential
point, Cole.
debate of this election.
Is that, do you think that's why I wore that tie? It's got to be.
Did you notice the tie, like the podium here? Let me
Yeah, pink.
The podium itself was the same color as his tie. Like they didn't really have a red podium there. It's like a pink podium.
Vaporwave pink.
Yeah, I can't find it. But anyway, yeah, what Cole said is very interesting there. Could be a tactic targeting women and weak men. It's actually a solid strategy because the aggressive nature of Trump is like kryptonite to the soy drinkers. Thanks, Cole. Yeah, man.
I think they're both kind of doing that. Both
Yeah,
of those
they are.
candidates. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole tone of this thing is very milk toast.
I'm back. Sorry, did I miss the whole thing?
Yeah, it's over, man.
I don't think I missed much, huh?
No, you didn't.
I predict that if Trump and Vance do win, then that's going to be his major issue. He'll be made in charge of the fentanyl issue. He'll be the drug czar. It's got to be. That's his whole origin story. That's what his book is about. You know, his family dealing with drug addiction and all that.
Yeah,
Ohio.
Which, I mean, it's not a bad thing if he fixes that alone. That's actually be a big thing.
Well,
they were talking about if Kamala wins, day one. I think that day one, what she would do would be, at least at the very beginning, she would double down on going hard, on military, like aggressive military operations of some sort. I mean, either what's going on now or something new to prove that, that she's not weak, right? She broke the glass ceiling, but she can handle things just like a man. I mean, that's seems to be the precedent for the female leaders throughout history, isn't it?
Yeah, just the old initial breaking of the glass ceiling, right? There, boom, you did it. You won. Great job. Never mind anything that happens after that.
Yeah, I think day one she's gonna go hard on freedom of speech. Probably is gonna be pretty hard, like silencing of all dissidents. Voice is just in preparation to what's gonna happen.
Aren't we expecting some sort of October surprise, according to one Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
I think day one, she will give us all a big hug because she's Mamala, and that's what we need.
From the FBI, big hug from the FBI.
Right.
Maybe an allowance to go with it too, eh?
Did you guys saw that those like videos of the FBI, like social guards that just go to people and like, hey, you posted that. I want to talk to you. And then there was one time that dude like really like completely shamed those two officers.
Yeah, I saw that one going around on Twitter.
Yeah, that was actually a good one.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a lot of that happening.
So yeah, and I think more of that is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we've been at it a bit here, guys. Let's go around the circle and get the fuck out of here. Infidel, Save Round's final thoughts.
No, I think as expected, it was a great vice presidential debate, just following the American tradition of just bullshitting the voters into false choices and accepting whatever they are going to cook based on the polls and whatever Shannon is going to pull in the last minute. So happy election season, everybody.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, we're going to have maybe every day a Black Swan event from this point on. We were talking about that in the Discord earlier. It's like the daily Black Swan instead of October surprises.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
All right, buddy. We'll let you get out of here. Thanks for hanging with us tonight for this exercise in futility. It's been fun.
Cheers, guys.
All right. There goes Infidel Pharaoh. Oops, somehow I clicked Bazed out there. Sorry, buddy. Bazed, over to you, man. Save Round's final thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for letting me parachute in, you guys. I had to take a quick stop by the doctor, which I really didn't want to go to, but I
I
wore
bet.
myself out. I've been coughing and sweating and all this stuff for the past few days. So got some good lean, some good cough syrup for to feel better here. Yeah, I don't know. I think this whole thing is it's just Hunger Games. It's weird. It's weird to think that the election is in 1 month. It's crazy that it's almost here. And who knows what's going to happen? I think that the stuff in Asheville in North Carolina is crazy as part of some sort of that has something to do with some sort of October surprise. I know there was an active pew pew that was there for a minute, and that they're worried about other things happening. I guess anything could happen, but no matter what happens, we'll stay positive and we'll keep on LIVIN, right?
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Love you too, man. Thanks. Check out Bay's Lit Analyzer on the YouTubes. Get over there and subscribe if you haven't yet. Ruckus, over to you. Save Round's final thoughts.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you so much for dragging me into this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to get you back. I'll have to pay you back. Anyway, yeah, no, these types of things are always unenjoyable without friends. So it's a good thing that we can do this with friends. Otherwise, why would we even do this, right? I don't think we would. So it is getting pretty late. I'm not exactly sure at this point whether I'm not going to get this Daily Ruckus done on time for today, but it will definitely be ready for you guys within 24 hours or less. I can pretty much guarantee that. So that's a safe bet. So just in case I get off the stream and I fall asleep and you don't get it tonight, it'll be waiting for you tomorrow, or we'll run it probably in the evening time. That's probably the best thing to do. So please do stay tuned for that, because I'm quite excited about it, because, you know, Daily Ruckus is now in Ruckus Vision, which, of course, is all fancy and weird. It kind of is going to look something like this, I think, in case you missed it. So, yeah, gonna be like, I'm gonna come out of the TV and get you. Oh, yeah, you know, whatever. Ruckus Vision, whatever. It's gonna be fun. So hopefully I'll get that done soon. And thanks again, Hesher, so much for having me. I am going to say my thing and get out of here. And my thing is, God bless each and every one of you, and may God save this republic. Ruckus out.
All right. Thanks, Ruckus. We'll see you soon. Daily Ruckus is back, and we got a new one coming your way probably tomorrow. Also have a brand new Mystical American Patriot Society. So I may put that on the 24/7 feed after this, and we'll do it. We'll run it again tomorrow before Daily Ruckus, probably. So if it's getting a little late for you, it'll be on the stream. It's already on our Spreaker channel. So get out there and check it out. It'll be up at alternatecurrentradio.com as well. And thanks for hanging with us tonight. Thank you. Like Ruckus said, it's easier to do this kind of broadcast or this sort of viewing with friends. So thank you, friends, for being with us tonight. And we'll see you again real soon for another Boiler Room.
That's it. Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.